The following is a Furnished Brothers production. Introducing your hosts, Rob and Ryan. Please welcome to the Talkin Buds Podcast.
That it is. The inaugural edition, in fact, of the Talkin Buds Podcast. Thank you so much to anyone within the sound of both our voices for taking the time out of your life to check us out. I'm Rob. He's Ryan.
What's going on, my dude?
And we'll be riding shotgun with you and the rest of Leafs Nation in what is undoubtedly the most anticipated Toronto Maple Leaf season probably ever. Would you agree, Ryan?
Absolutely, man. If you don't think this is the most anticipated Toronto Maple Leaf season, then you need to get your head straight, because this season might be the greatest ever. We have some of the greatest talents we've ever seen in a Toronto Maple Leaf uniform this year on the team. So let's get on the bandwagon. Let's have a good time. Let's try to enjoy it. Stay positive. Toronto Maple Leafs 2018. Let's go.
All right, now, before, Ryan, we get into our takeaways from training camp and then the season preview and then our weekly segment that we're going to try out, our Totally Unqualified Takes, I think it's best if we provide people with some Talkin Buds context. I think what we're both hoping to achieve with the show is simple, interesting, and entertaining discussion around the Maple Leafs and the National Hockey League in general. Our goal is to not really to get into the weeds with the statistical conversation or analytics and such, because while that sort of stuff is interesting to people, I think it's not really our cup of tea.
Yeah, let's leave it to the management group of the Toronto Maple Leafs to worry about the Corsi and Fenwick stats and how Martin Maringin's actually seemed as not useless analytically, but when I watch the game, he's completely useless. So we're just going to use the eye test. Me and you, couple regular buds talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's what this podcast is all about, man.
Talkin Buds. So I think we're just going to try and provide 45 minutes to an hour's worth of banter each week about our favorite team. And we hope everyone who listens to us and, again, takes the time out of their life to check us out enjoys it. Feel free to join in on the conversation. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, both at Talkin Buds.
At Talkin Buds Podcast. That's Instagram. That's Twitter. We'll post everything for you. We'll make sure you're all updated with all the new episodes, all the new content. And let's get this going, man.
Now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. And obviously, while it's gone on for a while and probably not the sexiest of things to start with, William Nylander is still not signed, and it looks like they're going to start the season without him signed to a contract. I don't know when this is going to get done. Hopefully, it's at the point now where it's hurting the player because he's going to start losing money. And I where do you want to start? Do you want to start is a bridge? Do they give him a bridge deal? Do they sign him long term?
Well, I think right now it's just they seem so far apart. I mean, Dubas is out saying how he wants to sign him long term, but a bridge really makes the most sense for Willie. Willie could bet on himself, take a 2-year, 3-year deal, play with Austin Matthews, and if all goes well, he could be getting 70, 80 points a year, which would increase his salary and make him worth that $7-8 million range he's looking for. Because right now, that's not where he's at. He's at that $6.5-6 million range. And, I just see this going into the season. I see it being ugly. I see it being really long. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how Willie handles it, because he has no other choice. He's either sitting in Sweden working out all winter, or he signs the deal that's in front of him, because I don't think Dubas is budging and going over that certain hard number that he's probably placed in front of him and his agent.
I'm with you on the bridge deal. I know that as the player, that's not exactly what you hope for, but he's going to be playing with Matthews, and you got to think that that's prime opportunity for him, as you said, 70, 80 points a season, and then cash in down the line. I know as an athlete, the players want to get their money now. I know there's talk of the impending lockout coming in a couple of years with the CBA, and it's coming to an end in the next few years. But I don't know, man. It's a tough one, because on the one hand, you support the player and his desire to get his money. And he's in a really tough situation because he's the first one of the quote unquote big three to get signed. So he's sort of setting the precedent. But having said that, I don't know. Like he's only hurting himself sitting out right now. And Tyler Ennis has been he played very well in training camp and he's held his own. And you can kind of see that he's like pumped to be given the chance to play with Matthews, but he's not. That's Willie's spot.
Yeah, well, Tyler Ennis is kind of like the older man's version of Willie Nylander. It's actually kind of funny when you watch them. They're pretty similar, even though I think Willie's a little more dynamic. But with Willie sitting at home and watching all these preseason games, he's seeing Marner light the lamp. He's seeing Austin Matthews. Hopefully he's healthy all year. He's watching his little line mate going off, and he's got to be sitting at home thinking, if Marner puts on a year, then he's going to want more money, which is going to affect Nylander's contract. But at the same time, you're looking at Power Play 1. Is William Nylander's name on Power Play 1?
No, that's
it's on
right,
Power
man.
Play 2. So he's sitting at home being like, well, what the hell is this? I'm not on Power Play 1. How am I supposed to earn my money and get more money? If you want to sign me to a bridge, you're going to put me on Power Play 2? That's going to decrease my point totals by a ton.
Right. I heard somebody say today that for him to get on the first power play, they're going to have to pull the goalie. And that's actually true. Like he's not getting on that power play. So, but it's hurting his position because now they're in a standpoint where they look like we don't need him. Like I've heard some people over the last few days on the radio saying they seem like they're doing just fine without him.
Yeah, exactly. This is the 1 year of the Toronto Maple Leafs where having a skilled player like William Nylander, people aren't really freaking out about it because they are loaded. Kadri, Tavares, Matthews, Marner, Kapanen's a good player. Like they're loaded. So really, you watch some of the preseason. I know it's preseason, but you're kind of looking at them being like, you know what? I think they're going to be all right without him. They're still going to get their goals. Do we want him on the team? Absolutely. We love Willie, but you know, this is kind of a different year for this franchise. Like we're not exactly looking at a guy like Willie being like, we absolutely need to get this guy done this year.
All right, let's shift gears to who is at training camp and who's on the team. Some roster cuts yesterday and today. So where do you want to start? You want to start with Connor Carrick or you want to start with the goaltending situation?
Well, let's start with some of the defensemen that got cut. Rosen, yeah, he had an okay camp early, but in that one showcase game against the Canadiens where he got put in because Dermott was hurt, he looked awful. He looked terrible. He got pushed off the puck all game. So, you know what? That doesn't really surprise me. Borgman got a ton of NHL minutes last year, and I'm not really surprised to see him go down either because this new guy, Oshie Ganov, came in, and he's kind of like Borgman.
The Russian Polak.
Yeah, exactly. So
Babs loves him.
Oh, of course, yes.
The Russian Polak.
He's a good player.
He's a good player.
He's a good pro. Yeah, you should see this guy in the gym. Works hard every single day.
Does it right every single day. I'm with you on Calle Rosen, though. There were a couple moments in that game against the Habs where he needed a scoop or two of Robitussin, and he coughed it up the middle 2 or 3 times in that game. And you're watching it going, oh my
Yeah, he just looks soft, dude. He just looks so soft. And the last thing this team needs is a soft player. And Connor Carrick, all I've heard all preseason is how this guy's winning all the fitness tests for the Maple Leafs. He's the most jacked guy in the locker room. He's in the best shape, but I've never seen a dumbbell make a good pass to get out of your zone. You know, like
that's true.
So,
that's
but
true.
Thing about Carrick though that's interesting is today he gets dealt.
Yeah, he got dealt. I was happy to see that.
Yeah, it was like the 7th round conditional. If he plays an X amount of games, they get a 6th pick instead of a 7th pick, whatever it is. But to me, that shows a shift in management that Lou would have let this guy just rot in the press box all year. He would have sat up there with his little suit all year, and we'd all be asking what Connor Carrick's doing. But instead, Kyle Dubas, new regime, comes in. They like Connor Carrick. Babcock has nothing but unbelievable things to say about the guy. He's an unbelievable pro. But they moved him because they saw that it wasn't going to be a positive situation for him rotting in the press box all year.
The Kyle Dubas new regime is an excellent segue to Garrett Sparks, because I think Garrett Sparks getting the backup goalie job has everything to do with Kyle Dubas being the general manager. Kyle Dubas was the general manager of the Marlies last year, who won the Calder Cup. Garrett Sparks is sort of his guy. I know Brian Burke drafted him, but Garrett Sparks is sort of his guy. And that to me was a signal that Dubas has a say here. He's just not going to get run over by Babcock on every single personnel decision.
Yeah,
so
because
it's
Babcock's
good to
a
see.
huge
Go ahead.
Babcock's a huge McElhaney guy. And like, you know what? McElhaney had a great year last year as a backup. And Babcock, from what I've seen the past 4 years, he has a very long leash with the veterans. He's a lot harder on the younger guys.
If you're a good pro who does it right every single day, Babs has all the time in the world.
Yeah, he has all the respect for you because that's what he's all about. He's all about showing up every day, working hard, being a good guy. He's a world-class family man, you know, all those good things. But here's the way I look at it. You either have a 35, 36-year-old going on waivers down to your minor league roster, and he might get plucked, he might not. Or you send down a 25-year-old on waivers, and he's probably going to get plucked. So it's experience versus youth, but it's age that wins because Sparks is just the younger guy. He has more upside. And also the way I've been explaining it, no, but like...
Didn't have a great preseason, though. Like, let's state that. Like, and I know you like the consensus is you can't really read too much into a goaltender's performance in the preseason.
No, I didn't look great at all, but the way I look at it, any normal person who has a 9-to-5 job and they do the equivalent of what Garrett Sparks did the past 2 years, which is be the best goal in the AHL and win the Calder Cup, and any other normal job in this world, that would earn you a promotion.
Absolutely. He'll presumably get his first start Sunday night against Chicago, second game of the back-to-back. So I imagine, though, would you imagine, do you think, I feel like McElhaney will clear waivers. And I feel like the condition upon taking Sparks is if he struggles at all, Max coming up.
Well, if he is the Jonas Enroth version of this year in his first couple starts, I think if McElhaney doesn't get claimed, then he's going to be on Babcock's bad side really, really quick. And you might see McElhaney back up with the team because Babcock is a first impression guy. He was with them that one disaster year. Sparks played a bunch of games that year, and he's probably made up his mind about him. And it's going to be, I think he has a short leash. We'll see what happens, though. But it's time to start pushing the young guys. Put Garrett Sparks out there. See what happens. What's the worst that could happen? It's a backup goalie position. We're not talking about the number one center. We're not talking about the starting goalie. Put the guy out there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree. All right, you want to get into some positives and negatives from training camp?
Well, my biggest positive is
the power play.
Because everyone talked about it.
Power play is ridiculous.
Exactly. And it's dangerous, and it reminds you of other teams in the league that have a dangerous power play. Like when Tampa gets a power play, it's not a couple bums going over the boards. It's Kucherov, it's Stamkos, it's Hedman, it's all the boys. Braden Point's a good player. He's out there. It's time to stack it up. Why not?
Yeah, I agree. It's ridiculous. And Mitch Marner, like you look at the talent you have on that power play and the players you have out there, and Mitch Marner is the one who drives it and quarterbacks the entire thing. He's incredible when he gets control of the puck in the offensive zone. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, he's so creative. Like the guy just makes passes that 99% of hockey players don't even look for or don't have the skill to make. He's so exciting, and don't forget, like I'm not even talking about just the power play. The special teams in general looked very good.
The PK also looked very good. Marner and Tavares on the power play was a really nice surprise.
And Kapanen on the PK, like he's a beast. He's so fast. You got Brown, you got Hyman, you got Par Lindholm. So it's Par Lindholm, Kapanen, Hyman, Brown, Marner, Lowell Tavares. That's your forward group on your penalty kill. And you know what? I love it. I love how they're dangerous on the penalty kill now. Why not? Why not look for that breakaway?
Babcock said today that Lindholm, Kapanen, and Brown are going out on the ice after that power play is done.
Well, yeah, that's on the other night on the broadcast. They were hounding all game that, well, the only downside to this power play is you have 3 centers, so if it ends, then you got to send out Par Lindholm. And it's like, you know what? Give it a shot. Like, why not? Why would you not stack that power play in the fear of Par Lindholm going on the ice after it's over? Like, let's just see what happens. Like, people just, they're never happy with anything. It's always, oh, we want this, and then that happens, and then they come up with another excuse of why that can't work. And it's like, you know what? Let's just give it a shot. Let's go. Like,
I agree. I totally agree. All right, first, so since we just talked about special teams, first negative of training camp for me is, and I know you agree with me on this, I saw too many things in preseason that I saw last year when it comes to offensively, the complete lack of generating a cycle, the one and done offensive chances that come flying over the blue line. You throw it at the net. It either scores, goes wide, or the goalie makes a save and they're back the other way. There's no sort of dumping in the offensive zone, cycling, pressuring the other team's defense. There's none of that. And that was a huge thing that we both commented on last season. And I saw more of it this year, combined with the defensive side, which, again, just running around in their own zone, completely out of position, similar to what we saw last year in the Boston series, where they're just hemmed in for minutes at a time. And I don't know what they're going to do about this. Like, I don't think offensively, I think it can be corrected, but defensively, I think they lack the personnel to avoid Freddie Anderson having to make 40 saves a night.
yeah, they don't have that stud back there. Like, I love Morgan Riley, and he can skate with the puck just as good as anyone in the NHL. He looks beautiful skating down the ice with the puck, but when they're hemmed in their own zone, they're really missing that Victor Hedman type of defenseman that can just get the puck out for you, that Drew Doughty guy. But this is what they have. Like, this is all they have. And the way I look at it too is to help your defense out. It's back to what you just said. You got to have sustained pressure in the O zone, the fun zone, as Babcock calls it. And if you don't keep the puck down there for a significant amount of time, if you're one and done doing the Phil Kessel hash mark turn, making a pass.
They were one and done all last year. And aside from a few moments this year where you saw Johnny T get the puck below the goal line and cycle it around a little bit, they were one and done for the most part in the preseason again. That's concerning.
Yeah, it is. You know what? It's not going to be a magical fix. Getting John Tavares is not going to all of a sudden make you into some defensive juggernaut. You know, it's just another player who's a little more responsible in his own end, but it's still the same defensive personnel. It's pretty much the same forward group. And you would think this is coaching, like doing this type of stuff, systems to keep the puck out of your own end. You think that'd be coaching, but at the same time, Babcock can say all he want. Exactly. Babcock can say all he want. You know what? We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to do this. If the guys aren't willing to commit and do it properly, do it the right way, then it's going to be the same thing this year. It's just this year they have a little more scoring talent than they did last year or the year previous. So
the thing is, though, it's not even, I don't even think it's a matter of them not wanting to commit. I think they're just not good enough. Like, they're just not good enough back there. They don't have the horses, and that could potentially be their downfall because they play in the division. You're going to run up against Boston or Tampa at some point. It's just, to me, that is my biggest concern. And I think it's every Leaf fan's biggest concern going into the season is the talent on the back end, 100%.
Yeah, well, they're super small back there. Like, they don't have anyone with any size. Hainsey's an old guy. I love Hainsey. Seems like an absolute beautician. And, you know, Riley's a number 2, you know, like he has a lot of number 1 qualities, but he's missing that shut down, like, shift where you just need that shut down in that important game, you know, like Jake Garner's Jake Garner. To me, they're talking about Jake Garner's contract coming up next year, and they're saying he's going to be worth $7 million. Like, oh,
no, thank you.
What is that? Like, you know,
no, thank you.
Without Garner, like, without Gardner, they'd be in trouble. Like, don't mistake that. But we've seen what the Leafs have done in the past when they signed guys who weren't capable of doing the job, but they just signed them because they needed them. They were scared of losing them. They were scared of bringing someone up and taking that person's spot. Like Phaneuf. Phaneuf was a perfect example. Oh, what would we do without Dion Phaneuf? We don't really like him, but we don't really have anyone else, so let's pay him $7 million a year.
Who's gonna take up all those minutes? Who's gonna take up all those minutes? Who's gonna play all those minutes?
Yeah, like it's brutal. Like I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah. Okay. That's something that we're gonna have to watch throughout the entire season. They're going in. These are the horses they got going into the season. Presumably, they can score their way out of trouble most nights. But I don't know, man. You're gonna run up against either Tampa or Boston in the postseason, and I don't like the chances of how it currently constructed on the back end. So. We and the thing about the defenseman is, and I hate people who get on and start saying trade for this guy, trade for that guy, because you're not up there. You're not realistic. It's not realistic. You don't know what it takes, but help is not coming. Like, you're not going to get a guy in free agency. There's no one coming from the minors, at least in the immediate future. Help is not coming. So if they really want to capitalize in their window, which realistically is this year and maybe next year, they're going to have to go get some help. And because it's not coming from within. It's just not.
No, it's not coming. And in the guys, to me, I know what Riley is. I know what Hainsey is. I know what Gardner is. To me, it's Zaitsev still has something to prove. And Travis Dermott, which hint, on my unqualified take may involve Travis Dermott.
Oh,
but
tease. There's a tease for later, folks.
Exactly. That is a tease.
Stay tuned.
Professional tease.
Stay tuned.
But Travis Dermott is another guy. Like he needs to play a huge role. So, like, you know what? This is the horses we have. Let's see what happens, man.
You mentioned coaching earlier. And one of the most interesting things going into the season for me personally is the coach. Honeymoon period's over. There will be pain period is over. He's got the horses now on offense, maybe not quite on defense. But I truly believe, Ryan, that if they get bounced in the first round again, it's going to be on him. I'm not saying he's going to get fired. He's not getting fired, but the heat will be on him if they get bounced in the first round again. And after what we heard last year about him going to meet Matthews at his place in Arizona, going to see Anderson at his place in Denmark, I'm and all the frustration we felt last year with Leo Komarov out there on the power play all the time, and Komarov and Polak, so much so that management had to remove those players from the fold because he wouldn't stop putting them out on the ice. I'm interested to see if any changes will be made by him this year.
Yeah, well, he's the guy who's under the microscope this year. I think the honeymoon, you're right, the honeymoon period is over. When he first came in, it was like, oh, Babcock's walking down the street. Isn't that the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life? You know, like the guy, he was walking on water for the first 2-3 years. Last year, people started kind of getting after the first playoff run, little success. Next year, a little more expectation, a little more pressure. And people were starting to criticize some of his stuff, some of the decisions he was making. And we'll see what happens.
His reliance on Leo Komarov last year made me insane. And
yeah,
after
like,
the game, you're like, why is he out there? Why is he out there over Matthews?
I know.
He's a good pro. Leo's a good pro, does it right every single day, in and out of the gym every single day. And it's just like, yeah, but he's not as good as Matthews. So why is he out there on the penalty kill, on the power play? Excuse me.
Yeah, he you know what? He just has his favorites. He picks those guys. He just loves them. He sticks with them. They're probably veterans most of the time, but he just can't be so stubborn. And you know what? A good sign early is putting all those guys in the power play, because that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants to see it. Trust me, people around the league, other teams in the league are like, they're probably interested. They're going, holy, look at this power play. How are we going to defend this? This is unbelievable. Look at all these guys on the ice. To me, that's a good first step for Babcock, but it's just, what if that power play struggles for the first 3 games? What if it struggles for the first 5 games? what is he going to do? Like, he might make some rash decision and just go to this thing in his head that's safe for him and switch it all up and do something that's going to drive everyone crazy. But he's Mike Babcock and he doesn't care.
Well, that's where having Nylander might be handy, because you could swap one of those guys out and swap in Nylander, and that might change it up a little bit.
Yeah, Nylander's pretty interchangeable with anyone on that power play. Right now he's on power play 2, which is still a pretty good unit. Well, if he ever comes back, but assuming he does soon, hopefully, he's easily interchangeable with any of those guys. But it's just, can Babcock stick with a new way of thinking? Can he just stay true to it? Can he not just go back to his old ways that he seems to always do? And just hopefully he can just get it done this year, man. And you're right. If they get bounced in the first round, you're right. It's going to be on him, especially if Matthews goes and has a brutal playoff again, he'll be under the microscope too. But it's going to be Babcock, because he hasn't had a lot of playoff success over the past 10 years or so. And the whispers will start kicking and everyone will start talking, and it's going to be Mike this, Mike that, Babcock this, Babcock that. So a ton of pressures on this guy this year, man.
All right, so enough of that. Let's get into looking towards the future. Want to do some player expectations?
Absolutely, man. This is my favorite part of the beginning of every season. It's a fresh start. Everyone's just great in your head. You're just thinking about all the guys. You're so positive about all they're going to do. You're looking at the best side of them. And it doesn't always work out, but I love looking ahead. So let's make some little predictions. We won't take too much time on each player, but we'll make a little prediction for your mostly the most notable guys. There's a couple of guys that are kind of lumped in the same category, but
let's do this. Let's just do the stars.
Yeah. We'll do the important guys.
And where else to start, Ryan? And I'm gonna let you go first on this one, because I know you're excited. Let's start with John Tavares.
Well, John Tavares. Johnny boy, man. God, John, I love you. But John's got a lot of pressure on him. He just signed the big deal, probably the biggest free agent deal in the history of the league.
Easily. And the biggest free agent deal in Leaf history.
Well, since we'll talk about the cap era. Like I'm not going to speak. I'm not someone who's whatever, but it's one of the biggest salary cap era deals, probably the biggest. And John's got a lot of pressure on him, but he's got a ton of talent around him. He's got the best playmaker on the team on his line. I think anything below 75 points for this guy is going to be seen as a disappointment. He had 84 last year playing with pretty good players. And I think there's a lot of pressure on Tavares, but he's got to be the stabilizer. He's got to be the guy who's responsible at both ends.
Yeah, he's got to be. That's what I'm looking for is not necessarily being the offensive juggernaut, because you've got guys on the team who can sort of fill that role. Being the stable first line centerman who can help play a 200-foot game. Like I said earlier, start some semblance of a cycle in the offensive zone. You saw him do that a little bit in the preseason. So I'm with you. I think it's less about offensive accolades and winning scoring titles and all that stuff, and more about, I'm going to say the buzzword, more of a captain role and playing a 200-foot game and leading by example, being a good pro every single day. That's what I'm looking for.
One more thing about Johnny, gotta get one more thing in there, because he's the hot guy in the city. He brings something that they don't have. He's a very good down low presence. I know Van Riemsdyk could score around the net. Van Riemsdyk couldn't hold on to a puck to save his life, couldn't take a hit, couldn't do anything.
He's not even in Johnny T's.
Yeah. Like, let's not even compare that. But I just like the down low presence, the strength along the boards behind the net, kind of that Wayne Gretzky office. I'm not comparing them, but that kind of behind the net kind of vision. He's the only guy on the team who I think really excels at that. So I think Johnny's got to put up the points, but since there's so much talent on this team, he also can focus more on just being that 200-foot guy who could be a shutdown guy along Kadri, because I think he's that good defensively as well.
I totally agree. All right, next up, 34.
Yeah, well, 34, man. This is the franchise.
Yeah, this is the franchise. Make no mistake about it, folks. I know we all love Marner. I love Marner too, but 34 is the franchise.
34 is the franchise ever since Bill Daly pulled that white card with that beautiful new logo on it at the time.
Happiest day of my life.
That was tear shedding. I shed a tear that day because this was the moment. You look at all the best teams that have won the cup over the past couple years. They all had that first overall pick. Crosby, Kane, Ovechkin. Now, that's how you set up your franchise for success. You get that pick. So now Austin's into his third year. We all know the guy is capable of scoring 40 plus goals a year if he plays all 82. But can you be that leader? Can you be the guy?
I want him to I think he's capable of getting 50.
Oh, agreed. You see the shot he had the other night again over Price? Yeah. Holy.
He's got to stay healthy, though. To your point that you were just about to make, he's sort of cut you off there. He's gotta stay healthy. I mean, the back injury is concerning because that's a lingering injury. But if he can stay healthy and have a season like he had in his first year, he can get 50 goals. There's no two ways about it. Especially if Nylander comes back, he can get 50 goals.
Oh, for sure. And, people are worried about the captaincy. Me and you both agree that we see Austin Matthews being the future captain.
Not Johnny T. As much as I love Johnny T, and Johnny T is captain material 100%. Matthews is the franchise. Matthews is the future. Matthews is the guy that you want to keep happy. Matthews, I think it was done on purpose that he wasn't given an A on his sweater heading into the season this year. Matthews is the next captain of the Maple Leafs, barring some sort of catastrophe, knock on wood. But Matthews is the next captain of the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and the reason why I think they didn't give him a letter or the captaincy is, why would you give the guy captaincy heading into his contract year? That's just another thing he could use sitting down at that table being like, oh, well, I'm the captain of your team, so isn't that another $1 million? Throw that in there.
100%. All right. Mitch Marner.
Mitchy boy. He's growing up before our eyes.
Absolutely electric. Absolutely electric. Picked up right where he left off at the end of last year in the preseason this year. That guy gets the puck on his stick. You can't take your eyes off him. No one can touch him. You hear the comparison everywhere, but he's like Patrick Kane. It's unbelievable watching him. He has been an absolute revelation since they drafted him.
Well, I've said since they've drafted him and since his first year, this is a guy, his body didn't grow at the same rate as other guys. Austin Matthews is 6'2", 200 something pounds, a big boy. Mitch Marner, guy, what is he, 5'10", 165 pounds when he got in the league. This is a guy who just needed to grow into his body, get some strength, figure out the league, but there's no one on this team who is more dangerous with the puck than this guy. He is, to me, he's going to be the sweetheart of this year. That's my prediction.
He's unbelievable. Yeah, he's unbelievable to watch.
He skates hard. He back checks. He forechecks.
He's not afraid. That's what I love about him. He's a little guy. He's not afraid. He goes in there and he wins the battles. That's something that you didn't see, not to dump on him, but that's something that you didn't see from Nylander. And that's one of the reasons why I think that's going on, not to bring that up again, but I think that's one of the reasons why Marner's favored in that debate of Marner versus, because it is really Marner versus Nylander. It's not Matthews. Matthews is separate, but it is Marner versus Nylander. Yeah.
Yeah. Matthews is the center. He's the centerpiece. He's the face, but Marner to me is going to be the sweetheart of this year. Everyone's going to fall in love with him. I think he's going to be so good. He runs the power play. He's on the penalty kill. He back checks. He forechecks. He even finishes checks now. Babcock leaned on him hard last year. He was on a line with Matt Martin at one point, and I love Matt Martin. That guy's a beauty. He's a legend. But Mitch Marner doesn't need to be on a fourth line with Matt Martin. And Marner had an unbelievable second half. He fought his way back. And I think this year, he's just going to absolutely light it up.
Freddie Anderson.
Freddie, if you look at Freddie's statistics, I know we're not getting into all this crazy statistical stuff, but I think save percentage is a dummy enough stat that everyone can understand. He sits around the same save percentage every year. He's in the last 2 years, he's had a really horrible start, but he's steady Freddie. By the end of the year, he's always at that same number.
I'm interested to watch his start. You're right. He's had he's struggled out of the gate. And I want to see if that's something it's something they've discussed and something he thinks about. I want to see if that's something he corrects this year. And just part of his evolution, I think, is not running so hot and cold. Like he has streaks of time where he legitimately looks like a Vezina contender and the best goalie in the league. And then he has other times where the soft ones go in. And I just think that I want to see, just like everyone does, I want to see a more consistent bell-to-bell effort from him this season, as opposed to hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold.
Yeah, Freddie, we've been starving for goaltending in this city. So you know what, Freddie, he is. That was probably Lou's best deal when he was here, signing Freddie, making that trade, and then signing him. Freddie's been a revelation here, but you're right. He does those struggles. At the beginning of the year, he's always October. His numbers are awful, and then he levels it out. What I want to see from Freddie this year that's different from the last 2 years is I want to see him just like get those couple shutouts, like every game you look over his stats over the year and like he's steady, but he just never has those games where it's like Freddie is not letting in anything tonight. Even though he gets hounded with pucks. Like last year, how could he get shutouts? He was facing 38 shots a night, but I want to see him just take that next like elite step. I see him just a level below those top elite goalies in the National Hockey League.
Totally agree with that.
And I think he has the capability. We've seen him just be unbelievable. And I think a part of that is the Leafs being better defensively and helping him out. But at the same time, it's not even like a nitpick. It's just something I want to see. I just want to see him hit that next level because I love Freddie. He's a beauty. And I think at the end of this year, though, we're going to be happy with Freddie's performance.
I totally agree with that. All right, let's do two more. Let's do Nazem Kadri.
Nazi boy. The longest tenured. Is he the longest tenured? Him and Gardner are contending for the longest tenured Leafs. But you know what? Nazem, there's no one who's benefited more from Mike Babcock being the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs than Nazem Kadri.
Changed his career. I 100% agree. Before Babs and Shanny got here, remember they suspended him. Well, Shanny actually was here. You remember they suspended him for his extracurricular activities. The one thing that I've been most impressed with is how Babs has gotten Nazem Kadri to embrace his role. Because, Kadri, as he should, thinks of himself in the same league as a Matthews or Tavares. And he should. That's one of Naz's strengths, is his swagger and his cocky confidence. But the way Babs has got him to embrace his role on the team it's played to his strength. It's testament to Babs. Cheers to Babs for doing that. Because I think you're right. He's been the biggest benefactor of Babcock being the coach of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nazem maybe he just always needed something to believe in. Maybe it was just the slew of bad coaching that before Babcock came, man. Like, you had Ron. I came up and played for Ron Wilson. Like, I know Ronnie's a successful NHL coach, but we all knew how that ended, man. And then he played for Carlisle, who was a bit of a wild card. I don't hate Randy. Bit of a wild card, and then they had the Peter Horacek disaster. But I just feel like when Babcock showed up, Nazem was at an age, he was in his mid-20s, where he just needed someone to look at him and be like, grow up. And whether that was Babcock or Shanahan,
it was Shanny.
Whatever talk.
You remember the reports that came out that Shanny had the one-on-one meeting with him and set him straight.
It was a man-to-man discussion. You can go Google Brendan Shanahan on Google and look at the pictures. Brendan Shanahan is not a weak man. But he is a beast, and if Shanny was standing in front of me and was telling me to smarten up, I would smarten up immediately. I'd buy in 100%.
That's why I was so pumped when they hired Shanny. I was like, this is a guy who's a winner.
Yeah, exactly. He's a winner.
He's going to bring his winning culture and mentality.
But Naz on the ice this year, he's not going to get as many. Well, we don't know this yet. Like, people are always saying, "Oh, Naz is not going to get as many minutes," but you never know with Babcock. Like, Babcock will throw anyone out there. He doesn't play by any rule book, Like, he just does whatever he wants. And if Naz is playing the best that night, that's who he's going to play. So I see, hopefully it's another 30 plus season for Naz, because he's just a talented goal scorer. He's on PP1. He had 12 power play goals last year. He's capable of getting more this year. So,
all right, let's do a defenseman. And I'm going to throw you a curveball here because you think I'm going to say Morgan Riley, but that's not as fun as talking about Jake Gardiner. Jake Gardiner ended the season in the doghouse with just about every Leaf fan I know after his performance in Game 7. Here's a player who is probably one of the most polarizing guys on the team, simply because his offensive talent and ability is quite something, but his defensive mental lapses, say that 10 times over, his defensive mental lapses, they just happen way too often. And you said he's vying for a new contract. It's probably going to be, like you said, in the $7 to $8 million range. I don't know if the Leafs can afford him at that price. He is, at this point, based on the way this defensive core is currently constructed, he is an important part of that. But I just, you can't ignore, like I said, the mental lapses in his game. They're blatantly obvious.
Jake Gardiner, this is nothing new. He's been here for years. He's the longest tenured Leaf along with Nazem. This isn't new just to the Game 7 situation in Boston. Jake Gardiner has always had this problem. He looks like $1 million one night, and then the next night he's sleepy boy. He's not. It's like he's not even there mentally.
Yeah, you watch him sometimes, and you're just like, what is going through your head?
And I know that every year he sets a new career high in points, and that's nice. But the Leafs don't need points this year, man. They don't. They need guys who are steady on the back end, who can make a play out of their own end. So Jake Gardiner, lump him in the Freddie Anderson category, where stop being so streaky and start being more consistent. Even play it more safe more if you have to. I know you have a lot of skill, but maybe make that easy pass instead of trying to do the smart, fancy, dumb thing. You know, that makes no sense. But he tries to make that fancy little pass up the ice that never works. And he makes those stupid mistakes sometimes.
I totally agree. All right, let's look ahead. The week that's coming up. Season opener Wednesday night at Scotiabank Arena. They've successfully drilled it into my head that it's now Scotiabank Arena, because every time I open my Instagram, there's Austin Matthews shaking his fist at me, telling me that it's Scotiabank Arena. Then you've got the Sens Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, also at Scotiabank Arena. Then they come right back, and what I said earlier will presumably be Garrett Sparks' first start Sunday night in Chicago. So they're going to Chicago after being home the night previous against the Senators. So you on paper, again, anybody can win at any night, but on paper they should pick up a couple W's over the Habs and Sens, but that's going to be no cakewalk, especially in a back-to-back with your backup goalie starting Sunday night against the Blackhawks. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's like we said earlier, Frederik Andersen, he's had his rough starts in October, and he's got to be on the ball this year to start the season. The good start is everything in sports. If they can get off that 4-1, 5-0, 6-2, 7-2, just rattle off those wins early, because that will make...
If they stumble out of the gate, won't that be something? Imagine they go out and lose to like Ottawa on Saturday night.
Exactly,
oh my God,
but like
city will be losing.
I know, but like you can almost see it happening. You can almost just you can just see it in your brain already. That just they go out, they lose that game, they're flat, they don't do anything, they defend horribly, they don't skate, they can't get the puck out, and then it's just burn the city on fire. And Chicago, the teams they play early, they got some crappy teams early. They got some good teams early. It doesn't really matter. It's just about them going out and just having a good start. Babcock always says you got to get out to a good start. But you know what? He's right, man. They need that, because they need to get ahead in that division. They need a leg up on Boston and Tampa. They need to win those head-to-heads against them all year. They need to win the division. It would make their life so much easier if they just went out.
Yeah, they have to win the division. If you're I'm getting annoyed lately where I've been hearing some people make comments along the lines of, oh, well, you're just playing to get to the playoffs. And it's like, no, you have to win your division. You do not want to run up. Like, you're going to have to play them anyway. You're going to have to play Boston or Tampa anyway, but not in the first round. Win the division, have a chance of playing in a wild card game and not running up against one of those two teams in the first round. That is the focus this year. The regular season does mean something. Let's not all pretend that we're just waiting to get to the postseason. The regular season absolutely means something.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? We all foresee them making the postseason, and hopefully they do, and hopefully they win rounds. But that doesn't mean they can't be looking ahead that far. It's a long season. The NHL is a long season, man. And they just need to go out and prove that they are a top 5, top 3 team in the NHL, and that they have a chance to threaten against those other teams in the league who are just as good as they are. That they can threaten to do this thing, man, because that's what we're here for this year. We're here to see them get this done. Or next year, doesn't matter. This is the roster. When we went through pain 3 years ago, this is what they envisioned, and you know what? They turned it around great. It's unbelievable what they've done, but this is what we're waiting for, man.
Yeah, they absolutely did. Yep. All right. Now to wrap things up, this is a segment that Ryan and I like to call Totally Unqualified Takes. The reason it's called Totally Unqualified Takes is because Ryan and I, quite frankly, are both unqualified. Neither one of us is a professional hockey player nor a professional hockey executive.
No. We are completely neither. We're just two regular dummies.
So Ryan, you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Whatever you want to do. You know what? I'll go first. I'll take the reins. My totally unqualified take this episode, the inaugural episode of Talkin Buds, I'm going to start out with my Newmarket boy, Travis Dermott. And, he's a year younger than I am. He grew up around the same area I did. I don't know him personally. I have a lot of people who do, and they all say he's a great dude. Here's my take. You ready? The guy, he is the most important player for the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. Why? Because he's the guy that everyone looks at to be the next defenseman. He's the only guy in their system. Like Liljegren and Sandin, they just drafted them. They're still young guys, man. They still got a long way to go. Travis Dermott is the only guy who, you say no one's coming. He's the only guy who's somewhat coming, who's capable of being in that top 4 position that they desperately need so badly to push down Gardner, Zaitsev, Hainsey. He needs to be... Even
Riley. We love Riley. He's the closest thing they have to a top 2, but also Riley.
I'm not saying that Travis Dermott needs to be a number 1 defenseman. I'm not saying he needs to be a number 1 defenseman. I'm saying that this year, if Travis Dermott plays like a number 2 defenseman or a number 3 defenseman and takes that huge step, that we're going to look back at the end of the season and go, that was the turning point. Travis Dermott taking that next step and adding to their solid defensive play, because the guy can move the puck. The guy can lay the body. The guy can I think he can do everything. He can skate. He can make good decisions. It's all about him just getting that experience and taking that next step. And I'm saying my take is it happens this year. And if it does, he could easily be, not easily, but he could be the most important player on the Toronto Maple Leafs during this season.
That is a totally unqualified hot take, my friend. All right, here's mine. Mitch Marner, playing alongside John Tavares, will get potentially 80 points, and his representatives will sit down either towards the end of this year or next offseason with Kyle Dubas, and they're going to look across the table and they're going to say, like hell, you're going to pay Austin Matthews significantly more than Mitch Marner. And Mitch Marner is going to ask for 10 large. The starting point is going to be double digits, 10 sheets, buddy. He's going to be like, I just got 82 points. I'm the most electric offensive player that you have, which, as we've seen at the end, towards the last part of last year and the beginning of this year in the preseason, is true. And that's what I think. I think Kyle Dubas needs to slow down with all the we can, we will, because if Mitch Marner plays the way, God forbid he gets hurt, knock on wood again. If Mitch Marner plays the way he's capable of playing, he's going to sit down and ask for the same amount of money that they want to pay Matthews.
And you know what? I know it's preseason, but you just watched him out there, and it's like, why can't this guy just demand 10 sheets, double-digit sheets, man? He's literally Patrick Kane out there. He looks like Patrick Kane. He plays like Patrick Kane. Guess what? Patrick Kane makes $10 million a year. If he goes out and he's a point-a-game player, I think he can hit 82 points or over. I think he's that good. I think he's going to be this good this year. If he does that, why not demand that much? Why not? You deserve it, dude. Why not?
And that'll wrap it up for the inaugural edition of the Talkin Buds Podcast. Thank you to anyone within the sound of our voices for checking us out. We're going to see you again next Tuesday morning, and we'll review the week that was and look ahead to the week that is. It's going to be a fun season, Ryan.
Absolutely. This is the bandwagon. Get on the bandwagon.
We are driving the bandwagon.
Let's go. This is the bandwagon. Let's do it. Let's go.
If you like the show and want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram and Twitter, both at Talkin Buds. We'll see you next Tuesday.